The first thing to hit me wasn't pain, it was the cold, deep, biting and absolute. Darkness pressed in, thick and suffocating. My eyes opened to nothing. I was bound, spread-eagled on cold steel, panic rising as leather straps bit into my wrists and ankles. A dull ache throbbed in my head. The air was thick with the scent of blood and fear. A single bulb flickered above, revealing stone walls and shadowy figures in priestly robes, faces masked, eyes cold. They circled me in silence, ghosts in holy vestments, preparing for a ritual I could not escape. One of them leaned over me, his breath a foul cloud of stale wine. His eyes above the mask were devoid of mercy, like a butcher sizing up meat. I saw my terrified face reflected in his glasses. He spoke over me, his voice a low, gravelly whisper. The vessel is prepared. The sin is deep-rooted. It must be excised for the soul to be cleansed. This wasn't an exorcism. This was an operation, a dissection. They saw themselves as surgeons of the soul. I was their patient, their sacrifice. He leaned in close, whispering, "You will be holy." The sting of antiseptic cut through my foggy mind. A memory flashed, heavy oak doors slamming shut, cool night air, a rough hand clamping over my mouth. Chloroform, struggling. Father Thomas's face, cold and predatory. I was dragged through stone corridors, surrounded by chanting priests, their faces twisted in candlelight. I wasn't just a victim, I was a sacrifice, led to an altar for a ritual I couldn't comprehend. My fragmented memories pieced together the journey down, a descent into hell, guided by fallen angels. Down a winding staircase, slick with moisture, the air stale and lifeless. The walls were lined with jars, organs suspended in murky fluid, each labeled with a name. This was no basement, but a catacomb beneath the church. They strapped me to a steel table, the heart of their darkness. "The sin is a cancer," Father Thomas whispered, "and we are the surgeons." My eyes adjusted to the weak, buzzing light, revealing the full horror of the room. Medicine and madness had formed a twisted union here. Buckets of dark liquid and bloody rags littered the floor. This room had seen this procedure many times before. The tools were lined up, ready for their next victim. My heart hammered in my chest. In the corner, a large iron cage. Inside, someone else was trapped, rocking, weeping. I was just the next in line for their twisted salvation. In the shadows, a young woman sat caged, her face pale, eyes hollow, spirit broken. The priests ignored her, moving with chilling calm, their focus on me. Father Michael's gloved hand pressed my chest. "The corruption is strong," he said. "We must open the vessel wide." Their ritual was a grotesque fusion of faith and flesh. As they sang, the scalpel gleamed. I was the text, about to be read and torn apart. My mind screamed. I was a cornered animal straining against leather straps, pain burning as I fought to break free. For a moment, hope flickered. Then the priests stopped their chant, cold eyes watching, intrigued. Father Thomas smirked. The resistance was part of their ritual. Deacon Price stepped forward, syringe glinting. I jerked away, but hands held me still. They wanted me conscious but docile, a silent witness to my own fate. The needle slid into my neck. Cold fire spread through my veins, my muscles went slack. I was a prisoner in my own flesh, mind screaming, body still. Father Thomas picked up the scalpel, his voice a twisted sermon. "This steel is blessed. It will not harm the soul, but only the cage of sin." The priests gathered, chanting, the blade glinted. I was the sacrifice, my heart pounding as the ritual began. The room was alive with sound, a terrible symphony conducted by surgeons of sin. Dripping water kept time for the horror echoing in the cavernous space. Drip, drip, drip. Deacon Price's endless humming, Father Michael's muttering, and the woman's hopeless weeping joined the chorus. My own frantic heartbeat and breath completed the Symphony of Suffering, the true hymn of their church. The priests were the conductors, their scalpel the baton, ready to begin the first violent movement. Father Thomas lowered the scalpel. The steel was cold, impossibly cold. It touched the skin of my chest, just over my sternum. For a moment there was just the pressure, a line of cold pressing down, my entire being focused on that single point of contact. The world ceased to exist outside of that thin line. The dripping water, the humming, the weeping, it all faded into a distant buzz. There was only the blade and my skin, a silent, terrifying communion between the instrument of my unmaking and the body it was about to defile. I held my breath, waiting for the inevitable. Then came the pain. It wasn't a cut, it was a searing, white-hot fire that ripped through my flesh. It was a sharp, clean, undeniable agony that lit up every nerve ending in my body. A gasp, loud and sharp, escaped my lips. The paralytic held my body still, but it couldn't contain the raw animal sound of pure pain. The blade dragged slowly, deliberately down the center of my chest. It was a methodical, unhurried movement. He wasn't just cutting me, he was savoring it. He was drawing a line, a sacred geometry of torment on the canvas of my body. Blood welled up instantly, a dark crimson line blooming in the wake of the steel. It was shockingly red against my pale skin, a vibrant testament to the violence being done to me. I watched, mesmerized by the horror of it, as the first few drops spilled over and traced warm paths down my sides, dripping onto the cold steel table. The coppery smell of my own blood filled my nostrils, thick and sickening. They weren't just whispering about removing sin anymore. They were doing it. They were letting it out, watching it flow from the wound they had created. "The vessel is open," Father Thomas announced, his voice filled with a grim satisfaction. He lifted the bloody scalpel, holding it up as if it were a holy relic. "The filth begins to pour out. Can you feel it? Can you feel the purity beginning to enter?" I couldn't feel purity. I could only feel the fire in my chest. The violation, the cold dread spreading through me. This wasn't a cleansing, this was a desecration. The first cut was just the beginning. I looked into his eyes and saw no mercy, no hesitation. Only the fervent, burning light of a madman who truly believed he was sending me to heaven by dragging me through hell. Pain burned down my chest. The priests stepped back. Their bloody work paused. Their attention shifted to a weeping woman in a cage. Father Michael unlocked the iron door and pulled her out. She didn't resist. She was limp, her eyes vacant. They dragged her to a cold steel table, identical to mine. Deacon Price strapped her down with gentle hands. I was forced to watch, paralyzed, helpless. Father Thomas wiped my blood from his scalpel, preparing for her. It was her turn now. Despair filled her eyes. The priest's face hardened. The ritual would begin again. They began their work on her. It was faster, more brutal than what they did to me. Less a surgery, more a butchering. Father Thomas picked up a heavy curved blade, something used to skin an animal. He made a deep horizontal cut. The woman didn't scream, just a low, guttural gasp. The priests worked with feverish intensity, harvesting something from inside her. They were monsters in holy robes, performing a sacrament of slaughter. Her life faded quickly. Their idea of purification was total annihilation. The basin was full, a grotesque collection of what was once a living person. Father Michael carried it over to the wall with the sinks, his steps careful, as if he were carrying a holy offering. He placed it down gently. He then turned a tap, and the sound of rushing water filled the room, a loud, cleansing noise against the backdrop of death. He began to wash the organs one by one, rinsing the blood from them with a strange reverence. He handled them with the care of a jeweler cleaning precious stones. This was their treasure, the physical manifestation of the sins they had removed, the trophies of their holy war. Deacon Price unstrapped her limbs. Her body was limp, broken. He and Father Thomas lifted her from the table. There was no dignity in the act. They handled her like a sack of grain, their movements efficient and detached. They carried her into the deeper darkness at the back of the room, beyond the reach of the single light bulb. I heard a heavy metallic clang, like the lid of a large incinerator or a chute being opened. Then a dull, wet thud. They returned to the light empty-handed, wiping their bloody gloves on their robes. She was gone, disposed of. Her purpose served. My blood ran cold. This was my fate. This was the end of the line for anyone strapped to these tables. The purification wasn't about saving the soul by cutting the body. It was about destroying the body to claim some sick, twisted prize. They weren't making me pure, they were getting me ready for harvest. The line they had cut into my chest wasn't the end, it was just the beginning, the opening mark. They had been interrupted, but they would be back. My defiance, my struggle had only delayed the inevitable. It had only bought me a front row seat to someone else's murder. Father Thomas came back to the center of the room. He picked up the basin of washed organs. He held it up, presenting it to me as a priest presents the Eucharist. "Behold," he said, his voice ringing with triumph, "the sin of despair, cleansed and ready for sanctification." His eyes behind the glasses and mask were burning with a terrifying, ecstatic fire. "Soon your pride will join it. Your defiance will be cut out and washed clean. You will contribute to our great work." He turned and carried the basin toward the corridor with the shelves of jars, disappearing into the darkness. They were adding another specimen to their gruesome collection. Watching her die, seeing them dismantle her with such piety, did something to me. The terror was a cold knot in my gut, but something else grew, rage. A molten core of fury burned away my fear. My mind became a predator, pacing the cage of my skull. Strapped down, helpless, I focused on the loose buckle at my wrist. They had made a mistake. The fire inside me would not be put out. Rage burned away the drug's cold grip. I felt a flicker in my finger, a ghost of movement. The priests, confident, turned their backs. They thought the drug was a perfect cage. But every cage has a weak point. My rage was the key. I strained against the leather, muscles trembling, hope sharp as glass. The clock was ticking. It was a race between their blades and my returning strength. I had to win. Father Thomas raised a cruel, hooked tool over me, ready to continue his ritual. Suddenly, the leather strap on my wrist snapped, the first crack in their control. For a heartbeat, time froze. Then I swung my freed arm, striking Father Thomas and sending his glasses flying. The other priests stared, stunned, their ritual shattered. I fumbled with the other strap, desperate for freedom as chaos erupted. Father Thomas, furious, shouted, "Pin him down!" The ritual was over. Now it was a fight for survival. Deacon Price lunged at me, but I tore my left hand free and grabbed a scalpel from the tray. The blade, once their tool, became my weapon. Deacon Price hesitated, shocked to see his sacred instrument turned against him. I didn't wait. I lunged off the table, pain flaring in my chest, but survival drove me. Father Michael circled, mop in hand. Father Thomas searched for his glasses. The deacon screamed, "Abomination!" and charged. We clashed, a desperate primal struggle under a single buzzing light. We collided. I smashed my forehead into Deacon Price's nose, breaking it. Blood poured. His zeal vanished, replaced by terror. I drove the scalpel into his stomach. He collapsed, lifeless. Father Michael froze, mop useless. Father Thomas, regaining his glasses, saw his world destroyed. Rage twisted his face. He grabbed a bone saw. The dance of violence wasn't over. The floor of this unholy church was about to get bloodier. It was just me and Father Thomas now, he with a bone saw, me with a bloody scalpel. He swung wildly. I dodged and stabbed his arm, making him drop the saw. His faith shattered as he bled. No longer a surgeon, just a man. I kicked the saw away and stood over him. He begged for mercy, the same mercy he'd denied others. I looked at the blood-stained table, rage flaring. "Is that what you call mercy?" I growled. "Let me show you what it feels like." I don't remember leaving the cellar, just blood, steel, and screams. Father Michael fled. I was left alone, baptized in violence. I stumbled through the empty church, a phantom leaving crimson footprints. The world outside was unchanged, but I was not. They'd tried to cut away my sins. Instead, they carved out my faith and innocence. Their church haunts me now, a place of blood and darkness beneath the altar. They wanted to make me pure. They just made me empty. In this city of shadows, sometimes empty is the only way to survive.